All right, let's jump right in. We're about to explore the story of a weapon that literally changed the face of warfare. But its journey didn't start on a battlefield or in some high-tech lab. Nope, it started somewhere much, much humbler.
So what if I told you that the most powerful weapon of World War I wasn't invented by weapons designers at all, but was actually born on a farm? It's true. Get ready to hear the incredible story of how a simple tractor, the kind designed for plowing fields in California, became the armored beast that completely reshaped modern war.
To really get why this invention was so desperately needed, we have to go back in time, back to the Western Front in 1914. And the problem they faced was a nightmare called trench warfare.
I mean, just try to picture it. You've got these massive networks of trenches stretching for hundreds and hundreds of miles, and in between them is this wasteland called no man's land. Anytime soldiers tried to cross it, they were just cut down by machine gun fire. It was this horrific, bloody stalemate where thousands died to gain maybe a few feet of muddy ground. The war was literally stuck.
And you have to understand, this wasn't just a tactical puzzle to be solved. It was a massive human tragedy. A guy named Lieutenant Colonel Ernest Swinton, he was an officer and an engineer. He saw it all firsthand. The experience shook him so deeply that he said it was then he truly understood what shell shock meant. That horror, that feeling of complete hopelessness, is what lit a fire under him to find a better way.
So where does a solution even come from in a situation like that? A bigger gun? A stronger bomb? No. The answer came from the world of farming. This is where we get that incredible spark of genius.
And this machine right here, this is the real hero of our story. It's a Holt tractor. Its amazing Caterpillar tracks were designed to solve a farmer's problem, how to keep a heavy machine from sinking into soft dirt. It could just crawl over all sorts of difficult terrain, exactly the kind of thing needed on the battlefields of France. But, nobody had put two and two together yet.
And what's wild is how quickly this all happened. Swinton sees this horrific problem, and just a few weeks later, something clicks. He remembers seeing one of these Holt tractors, and he has his light bulb moment. He immediately starts writing memo after memo to the top brass, begging them to listen. He wasn't just pitching a new gadget, he was pitching an entirely new way to fight.
But, having a brilliant idea is one thing. Getting the powers that be to listen is a whole different battle. And this one wasn't fought in the trenches, but in the halls of power back in London.
You can just feel Swinton's frustration, can't you? The one person with the power to make it happen, Lord Kitchener, the guy whose face was on all the recruitment posters, he just completely shot the idea down. He was so unimpressed, he didn't even bother to meet with Swinton. And just like that, the project seemed dead in the water.
But then, the idea found its way to an unexpected champion, Winston Churchill. Now, you might be thinking, wait, Churchill was in charge of the Navy. Why would he care about a land weapon? Well, because Churchill was a bit of a maverick. He was obsessed with new technology and was willing to try pretty much anything to break the deadlock and save lives. And because Churchill was a Navy man through and through, he didn't call it a tank. He called it a land ship. I love that name. It just perfectly captures the vision, right? A huge, armored battleship that could sail across the sea of mud and barbed wire just like a dreadnought on the ocean. It was a powerful idea.
So what did Churchill do? He did something kind of sneaky. He basically used the Navy's budget to go around the Army's back and form this top-secret landship committee. And look at this team he put together. You've got the visionary, the political backer, naval architects, and brilliant engineers. It was like a little secret startup tasked with inventing the future of war.
Okay, so with Churchill running interference, the team could finally get to work. It was time to move from blueprints and ideas to actually building this metal beast in a workshop in Lincoln. But here's a little bit of irony for you. The key piece of tech, the Caterpillar track, was actually invented in Britain years earlier by a company called Hornsby. But the British Army just wasn't interested back then. So what did Hornsby do? They sold the patent to an American company, Holt, who made it a huge success. The idea literally had to go to America and back before its own country would see its potential. And the process of invention was just incredibly fast. Their first try, a prototype they called Little Willie, well, it failed. It just wasn't big enough to get across the wider trenches the Army was now demanding. But instead of quitting, the engineers, Tritton and Wilson, went straight back to the drawing board. They came up with that iconic diamond shape we all recognize. This new machine, nicknamed Mother, was the real deal. It was the breakthrough.
So why on earth do we call it a tank? It's a great story, actually.
It was all about secrecy. They couldn't have spies figuring out they were building some new super weapon, so they told the factory workers they were just building mobile water carriers, water tanks, for the troops in Mesopotamia. It was the perfect cover story, and the name just stuck.
So the machine is built, the crews get some hurried training, and the secret has been kept. Now it's time for the moment of truth, the ultimate test on the battlefield.
So, it's September 15th, 1916, the Battle of the Somme. 49 of these brand-new, never-before-seen machines start lurching towards the German lines. Can you imagine being a German soldier seeing that? It must have looked like something from another planet.
But here's the reality check. Of those 49 tanks that started out, only 9 of them actually made it across no man's land and into the fight. Just 9.
So that sounds like a disaster, right? Well, no. It was actually a messy, chaotic, but absolutely terrifying success. Yeah, most of them broke down or got stuck in the mud, the crews had no idea what they were doing, and the conditions inside were just awful. But those 9 tanks that did get through caused total and complete panic. They proved the concept worked, and the potential was so clear that the British High Command, the same guys who laughed at the idea, immediately ordered 1,000 more. The landship was here to stay.
So, you'd think the story ends there. The war is over, the tank is a hero. But a new kind of battle was just beginning. This one wasn't fought with guns, but with angry letters and newspaper articles, all about who really deserved the credit.
And this gets to the big question that people still argue about today. When you boil it all down, who really did invent the tank? Was it one person's idea, a group effort, or science fiction writer?
Well, you've got 2 main contenders. In one corner, there's the famous author, H.G. Wells. He pointed out that he described giant armored land ironclads in a story way back in 1903. He basically said it was his idea, a civilian idea that the backwards military was too stubborn to see. But in the other corner was Ernest Swinton, the soldier. He argued that the idea came from the real desperate need on the battlefield. It was a soldier's solution to a soldier's problem, and their public fight over it went on for years.
But, maybe they were both asking the wrong question. Maybe it's not about who gets the credit. As this quote puts it so well, maybe the real question is how all these different people and different ideas, from sci-fi authors and farmers to politicians and engineers, all came together at just the right moment. It wasn't one single spark of genius. It was more like a perfect storm of inspiration that created something that would change the world.